Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy daily stories about cheating, revenge, and relationship advice. The evening had begun like any other, but the moment Sophie stepped out of the bedroom, everything shifted. She emerged from the hallway in a sleek, black dress that hugged her figure provocatively. Her heels clicked sharply on the wooden floor, a sound that seemed to echo in the tense silence of our living room. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine, but my eyes were glued to her. "Wow," I said, trying to sound neutral, but my voice came out tinged with something I couldn't quite name. "That's quite a dress." Sophie paused in front of the full-length mirror, giving herself a final appraisal. Her hand deftly adjusted a loose strand of hair, and she turned her head slightly to check her profile. "You think?" I wanted to look nice for a change. It's been a while since I dressed up like this. I could see her confidence in the mirror, but it did nothing to quell the growing unease inside me. "We're just talking about drinks with your friends, right? I mean, that's all it is." She glanced at me through the mirror, a hint of irritation in her eyes. "Yes, just drinks. I don't see why it's such a big deal." "It's not the drinks," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "It's the outfit. It feels like you're making a statement. And, well, with your friends, you know how their relationships have ended." Sophie's shoulders tensed, and she turned fully to face me. "Are you seriously accusing me of something? Just because I want to look good?" I tried to explain. "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that I've seen how these things can go. Lauren's always jumping from one relationship to the next, and Claire is not my responsibility." Sophie cut me off sharply. "And just because my friends have issues doesn't mean I'm going to follow their path. I'm not planning to do anything but have a good time." I felt a pang of doubt. "But why do you need to dress like that? Why not go out in something simpler?" Sophie sighed, clearly frustrated. "Mark, I'm not going out to make trouble. I'm going out to unwind. It's been a long week, and I just want to have a little fun." I stood up from the couch, my frustration mounting. "It's not just about fun. It's about trust. When you dress like that and go out with friends who have a history of trouble, it makes me wonder where your head's at." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Are you implying that I'm unfaithful? Because that's what it sounds like." "Not directly, but," I hesitated, searching for the right words. "But it feels like you're testing the boundaries. Maybe even pushing them." Sophie's face hardened. "I'm not testing anything. I'm just going out. If you can't trust me, then maybe we have bigger problems than just this night." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. "It's not about not trusting you. It's about the choices we make and the impact they have. If you choose to go out like this, it feels like you're making a statement about us." "Maybe I am," she said, her voice dripping with cold resolve. "Maybe I'm trying to remind myself that I still have a life outside of this house, outside of our routine." I stared at her, unable to shake the sense that something was seriously wrong. "So, what is it going to be, Sophie? Are you staying home and working on us, or are you going out?" Her gaze was steely, her decision clear. "I'm going out." I nodded, though my heart sank. "Fine. If that's your choice, then I guess I don't have much more to say." Sophie grabbed her purse and headed for the door, leaving me alone with the unsettling silence that followed her departure. The minutes ticked by slowly, each second amplifying my doubts and fears about what was happening between us. The house felt colder once Sophie left, like the warmth had been sucked out along with her. I paced the living room, my mind racing. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the ticking of the wall clock. I was filled with a growing anxiety that I couldn't ignore. If I let her go out tonight, where would it lead? Would it be the start of something irreversible? I sat down heavily on the couch, my thoughts churning. What was the worst that could happen if I let her go? And if I tried to stop her, what would be the fallout? The unease gnawed at me until I finally made a decision. If she wanted to go out dressed like that, then I needed to make my stance clear. This wasn't just about a night out, it was about our future. When Sophie walked back through the door hours later, a haze of alcohol and perfume followed her. She looked flushed, her makeup slightly smudged, but she was still the same Sophie. The sight of her made my heart ache. I stood up from the couch, feeling a mixture of resolve and trepidation. "Had a good time?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me, her expression guarded. "It was fine. We had a few drinks, laughed a lot. Just a normal night." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Sophie's face hardened slightly. "Now? What's this about?" I nodded, gesturing for her to sit. "Yeah, now. I've been thinking a lot about tonight and everything that's been happening." She sat down, crossing her arms defensively. "What's there to talk about? I told you, it was just drinks." "I know what you said," I began, trying to find the right words. "But it's more than that to me. It feels like you're not taking our marriage seriously if you're willing to go out like this and disregard my concerns." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You're seriously saying this is about my outfit? I thought we were past this." "It's not just the outfit," I said, struggling to explain. "It's about the pattern, the choices you're making. I'm worried about where this is headed." Sophie's voice grew sharp. "And what do you want me to do? Stay home every night? Give up my life because you're feeling insecure?" "No," I said, trying to remain calm. "But I need you to understand how your choices affect us. If you can't see that, then maybe we need to reassess things." She stared at me, clearly frustrated. "So what's your big solution? What do you want me to do?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I'm giving you an ultimatum. Either stay home tonight and work on our marriage, really talk about where we're headed, or go out and face the consequences of your choice." Her eyes flashed with anger and disbelief. "You're giving me an ultimatum? Are you serious? What kind of choice is that?" "A choice between our marriage and your night out," I said firmly. "It's not about controlling you, it's about making a decision. If you choose to go out, it means you're not willing to work on what we have." Sophie's face flushed, her anger palpable. "So, you're threatening our relationship over one night? That's not just controlling, it's ridiculous." "It's not a threat," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's a wake-up call. I'm trying to protect what we have. If you can't see that, then maybe we need to think about what we're doing." She stood up, shaking her head in frustration. "I can't believe this. You're making me choose between my friends and my marriage." "It's not about choosing them," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "It's about choosing us. You need to decide what's more important." Sophie's shoulders slumped, and she sighed heavily. "Fine. I'll go out. If that's what you really want, then I'm going." Her words stung like a slap, but I nodded, feeling a sense of resignation wash over me. "Okay. Do what you need to do." She grabbed her coat and purse, giving me one last look before walking out the door. I heard it slam behind her, leaving me alone in the empty house, the silence now thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension. As I sat back down on the couch, the gravity of what I had done sank in. I had laid down a line in the sand, and now it was up to me to follow through. I just hoped that in the end, it would be enough to save what we had. The house felt hollow and strangely silent after Sophie left. The ticking of the clock seemed to fill the void, each second dragging painfully. I sat on the couch, staring at the spot where she'd been, my mind racing through 1,000 thoughts. The decision to give her an ultimatum had seemed necessary at the time, but now, alone in the quiet, it felt like the beginning of the end. I paced back and forth, wrestling with my feelings. Was I doing the right thing? Was there still a chance for us, or was this just the final straw? The more I thought about it, the more certain I became that I needed to act. This wasn't just about a night out, it was about how we handled our issues. Finally, I made up my mind. I headed upstairs and began packing a few essentials, clothes, toiletries, and a couple of personal items. As I stuffed everything into a duffel bag, I couldn't help but think about the message I needed to send. Sophie needed to understand the gravity of what she'd done and the choice she'd made. I grabbed a sheet of paper and wrote a note, my hands trembling slightly. You chose them over us. I hope it was worth it. I folded it carefully and placed it on the dresser, next to the framed wedding photo that had once been a symbol of our commitment. The email was more formal, but just as final. I composed a message to her family, explaining that Sophie had made her choice and that I could no longer stay in the marriage. It was short and to the point, but it conveyed everything I needed to say. As I finished packing, I took one last look around the house. It was still filled with remnants of our life together, the books we'd read, the photos we'd taken. But now, it felt like a chapter closing rather than a home. When Sophie finally returned, the door creaked open quietly. I was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, when I heard her footsteps. I could hear her voice, muffled and cheerful, as she moved around, likely expecting me to be waiting up for her. "Mark," she called out, sounding a bit uncertain. "Are you still here?" I didn't answer immediately, wanting her to come in and see the message for herself. After a few moments, she appeared in the doorway, her face flushed from the night out. Her smile faded when she saw the packed bag and the note on the dresser. "What's this?" she asked, her voice wavering as she walked over to the dresser and picked up the note. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm leaving." Her eyes widened in shock. "What?" "Mark, this is insane. I was just out with my friends. I didn't think it was that big of a deal." "It is a big deal," I said, standing up and moving toward her. "It's about trust and choices. You made yours, and now I'm making mine." She looked at me, her eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "You're really leaving over this? After 20 years, you're just going to walk out?" "It's not just about tonight," I replied, my voice cracking slightly. "It's about everything that led up to this. I can't stay in a marriage where I feel like my concerns are dismissed and where trust is questioned." Sophie's face contorted with frustration. "Mark, please. This isn't the answer. We can talk about this, work through it." "I've tried," I said, feeling the weight of the decision pressed down on me. "But tonight was the last straw. I need to move on." Her eyes filled with tears. "So, what now? What happens next?" "I'm leaving," I repeated, trying to stay firm. "I've already sent an email to your family. I need to go and figure things out." She sank onto the edge of the bed, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "This is all a mess. I didn't mean for any of this." "I know," I said quietly, feeling a pang of sympathy despite everything. "But this is where we are now. I'm sorry, Sophie." With that, I picked up my bag and walked out the door, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than any argument. The car ride to the new apartment was a blur of headlights and streetlights, my mind filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. As I settled into the new place, I began to unpack and rearrange things, trying to create a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. Each item I placed seemed to mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I hoped that with time, the pain would fade and a new sense of purpose would emerge. Meanwhile, Sophie was left to grapple with the fallout of our broken marriage, her loneliness and regret echoing in the empty spaces of our former home. Seattle was a city of contrasts, towering skyscrapers and lush parks, bustling streets and serene waterfronts. As I settled into my new apartment, I found comfort in the city's diversity. It was a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the familiar but painful memories of my past life. The apartment was small but cozy, with large windows that overlooked the cityscape. The change of scenery was just what I needed. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of adjusting to a new job and exploring the city. I threw myself into work, focusing on tasks that kept my mind occupied. My new colleagues were welcoming, and I quickly made friends who helped me navigate my new environment. The social life was different from what I was used to, but it was invigorating. One evening, as I was setting up my new apartment, I received a call from Jake, a friend I'd made at work. We'd bonded over our mutual love for hiking and had started hanging out on weekends. "Hey, Mark," Jake's voice crackled over the phone. You around? Thought we could catch up over a drink. I've got some news. Sure, I'm free, I replied. What's up? Let's meet at that new pub on Pine Street, Jake suggested. I'll fill you in there. The pub was a cozy, rustic place with dim lighting and a relaxed atmosphere. When I arrived, Jake was already seated at a table near the window, nursing a pint of beer. He waved me over with a grim expression. Hey, Jake. What's the news? I asked as I sat down. Jake took a deep breath, looking troubled. So, you remember Emma, right? The one I was seeing before everything happened. Yeah, of course, I said, my curiosity piqued. What happened? Jake sighed heavily. I found her with someone else. It was a mess. And then she tells me she wants an open relationship. I frowned. That's rough. What did you say? I told her I couldn't do it, Jake said, shaking his head. I'm not into that kind of arrangement. It just wasn't for me. I nodded sympathetically. That sounds like a tough situation. What happened after? Things got worse, Jake continued, looking down at his beer. Emma's new partner was in a bad accident. I don't know all the details, but it's pretty serious. I could see the weight of it all on Jake's face. I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like a lot to handle. Jake took a sip of his drink, looking pensive. Yeah, it's been a rough few weeks. But I'm trying to move on. I've been keeping busy, just like you. I nodded, appreciating the support. It's good to have distractions. I've been doing the same. The new job is keeping me occupied, and exploring the city has been therapeutic. Jake managed a small smile. Glad to hear you're finding some peace. We both deserve a fresh start. As the evening progressed, we talked more about our respective journeys, finding comfort in shared experiences. It felt good to connect with someone who understood the process of rebuilding. Back at my apartment, I continued to make it my own. I hung up new pictures, arranged furniture, and even planted a few indoor plants. The space was beginning to feel like home, a reflection of the new chapter one was trying to embrace. Months later, I received a message from Sophie. Her words were apologetic and filled with regret. She expressed her loneliness and hoped that we could find a way to reconnect. But as I read her message, I realized how far I had come. The pain of our breakup was fading, replaced by a sense of new possibilities and personal growth. Mark, Jake said during one of our catch-ups, how are things with Sophie? I sighed, looking out over the city from my apartment window. She's reached out, but I'm not sure where things will go. I'm focused on moving forward, and right now, that means continuing to build my life here. Jake nodded. That's the best thing you can do. Keep moving forward and finding your own path. And so, I did. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, but I faced them with a renewed sense of purpose. Seattle had given me a chance to start over, and as I looked out over the cityscape, I felt a sense of hope and possibility that I hadn't felt in a long time. The past was behind me, and the future was wide open.